Today, we're going to be talking about well, UX, how it works, and how we especially do it. We have a special flavor of it that we constructed based on our years of experience and the importance of UX for software engineering. I do want to ask you guys, if you have any questions, please write them down. So at the end, when I have time to discuss them. This is the agenda for today. We're going to be doing some introductions, me and my team. Then we're going to be talking about the goals of this particular presentation. And then we're going to start just by defining UX and why it's important for software engineering. Then we're going to be talking about some overview of the UX process as we do it. And then we want to talk about each of the main three disciplines: UX research, interaction design, and visual. And I'm going to let the managers take that because that's their expertise. And at the end, we're going to be talking about some takeaways, like a summary of the presentation. Well, this is your team that's going to be presenting today. Maria is our UX research manager. She oversees all the UX research in GBH, not necessarily just for clients, but internally also. And she just makes sure that we are focused on the U part of UX, the user. Xavier, it's our interaction design manager. He oversees the whole interaction design area, and he makes sure that we craft solutions with the right design patterns that are scalable, usable, and useful for our users and clients. Jose, our head of UX, who is also functioning today as the visual design manager. He oversees all the visual design area and makes sure that we elevate all the experiences that we design and that the final user can use them and feel as it was intended. And me, Pablo, I'm the director of user experience at GBH, and I'll guide the UX team and the clients to achieve their respective goals. Talking about goals, the main goal of this presentation is that we understand the role of software engineers in the design of today's digital products and how to work together with designers to yield better results. And we're going to be achieving that by introducing the field of UX, what it is, how it works, and why is it important, by getting more familiar with the vocabulary, concepts, and tools used by UX professionals to identify and solve real problems, so you can interact with them in a more smooth way. And we're going to be also understanding the role of the user in the design and the development of these products and services. At the end, we're all doing this for them, so we're going to be understanding how they play their role. First, what is UX? I like to define this as broadly as possible because it's easy to think that because we're talking about this now, this is a new term or a new discipline. It is not. UX is defined as the set of factors and elements of an interaction between a person, in this case, let's call it a user, and an object. It could be physical or digital, that result in a positive or negative perception. That is what we call experience. And like you could say, seeing this definition, that this has existed for in some shape or form since humans started to interact with tools, with objects. Any tool that we started using as the early stage of humans has an interaction with us. We felt something by using the first hammer, using the first screwdriver, inventing the wheel. That type of process that was defined, or not defined, but used to craft those tools is it's UX, it's user experience. People were trying to fulfill a goal with an object. And this has become more and more important today with the expansion of digital products and the democratization of technology. That now it's not hard to have access to tools that enable us to create products that can impact people around the world. That is not something as hard as it was before, and that is why now we have a lot of competitors, a lot of apps that do the same thing, and we always choose the one that makes us feel better. And that is part of the maturity of the market and the consumers of these products. Currently, any service or product is interpreted as an experience, as the user experience something by using or receiving the service, and it's designed to meet the expectations of both the manufacturers or suppliers and users. It's important that we fulfill both expectations, because the business and the users have sometimes different goals and expectations, and they need to be both fulfilled for the product to be successful. User experience today is how a person feels while using your product, how easy they can find the information in your product, how easily they can achieve their goal, and how smooth is their journey throughout the product. As we see, UX is much, much more than just making a product look good or visually appearing. It is about ensuring that the people will find value in what it is, in what it can do, and they can find the way that they can find a way or an easy way to fulfill what they are looking for with that product or solution effortlessly. As we see it happening today, if you need a taxi, how many taxi apps are there, right? If you need to order food, how many delivery apps are there? If you need a map, how many maps are there? If all the prices in all those services were the same, which one will you choose? Will we choose? It's the easiest one, the one that makes us feel better. UX is about designing your solution, not based on assumptions or personal preferences. One of the most common mistakes in this design industry is to design something for you when you're not the only user. UX is about doing research and testing those results to create a solution that users find useful, intuitive, and pleasant to interact with. That is the real power behind the process and the design industry. User satisfaction with a product or service is very closely related to how they feel or how they felt while using your product. And by that, to your business goals, because at the end, we all want something to fulfill something with our products. All our products are based on solving a problem. And if we achieve that in a pleasant way, we can make sure that users are gonna be coming back, or they're not gonna stop using our products. If something goes wrong into this experience, into this use of your product, the users are more likely to go to the competition, because, like I said, there's a lot of competition out there. So if yours is not the one that makes me feel the best, I'm gonna choose another one that fulfill the same goal and makes me feel better. Good UX is a way to understand your users and learn what are their needs in order to meet them with your solution, product or service later. It's not about creating something and just taking it out there and see if it sticks. It's about first learning what the problem is, what the users want, what the users need, and then with that, create and test a solution before building it and shipping it. Why is UX important for software engineering? And I would like to start this section with a quote by Don Norman, one of the most famous UX practitioners today, and considered by some one of the fathers of our modern UX, an author of the first books related to the discipline. And it says, finally, people have to actually purchase it. It doesn't matter how good your product is, if in the end, nobody uses it. What good it is if we build the world's best calculator and nobody uses it? Is it the world's best calculator? No product that is never used could say that they're the best. We're going to be exploring the section, or I want to explore this section of why this is important based in three main perspectives. The first one is user involvement. It's about the user. The user is the protagonist in this discipline. These are the people that are going to be using your products to get something done. If we're not sure we are fulfilling their goals or needs, they have no use for our product. If we miss in providing them with a solution that they need for their problem, our product is useless for them. UX keeps the whole team focused on the users and the user's need, and allows the team to understand the user goals, requirements, and pain points, rather than focus just on producing acceptable outputs. UX keeps the team focused on providing value, not just deliverables. If the user is not involved in the product lifecycle or the product design cycle, we may come up with problems and solutions that we think are meeting our users' needs and expectations that weren't even a pain point to begin with. So we're going to be creating a product or solving a problem that is not a problem. We thought it was a problem, but it's not. But now the product is already built and useless. That results in time and in wasted time and resources of our team and the business. There have been several studies about how the user involvement impacts product adoption, especially in software. And some of the results are that 70% of the software projects fails due to lack of user acceptance. This is clearly what I just said. The product is done, it's shipped, nobody uses it, all the time and effort building it is just wasted. 70% of the software projects. 88% of users will be less willing to return to a website or use a product after having a bad experience. 88%. That means that if you miss on that first impression, on that first use of your product, 88% of those users are not gonna look at your product again, not even test it again. It's hard to come up with second opportunities in digital products. This market is really tough on first experiences. 14.4% of users would be willing to change their actual product or software product if it doesn't meet their expectations. That is really directly related to this graph here. It's not good enough to provide a good experience. That is just the normal thing. Everyone provides something that is, can be used to solve a product. That is not something that is gonna make your users come back to you or don't change you for the competition. If you see here, after that good comes very good, that is here. That is a sign of indifference. That means that if you're very good, you're not impacting me enough to come back to you. If somebody else comes with a different proposal, just with a different color, let's say a different Uber that the logo is not red, and I like red more than black, I'm gonna be changing to that new red Uber because the services are just very good. To have users develop that loyalty, that adoption, and that freaking use to your product, you need to achieve this 10% here, the zone of loyalty. It's to provide an excellent experience, something that not always it's available in all the products, something that is different, something that makes me feel something that others don't. That is the product that I'm going to be loyal to. That is a brand that I'm going to be always consuming. That is the product that I will, like my next number will tell, be an ambassador of. I will recommend that product to my peers. I will recommend that product to my family. I will recommend that product to anyone that I hear that is having the same problem as me for free. You are by achieving this excellent experience, this excellent service, you are achieving two things. You are achieving loyalty of that this user, this customer won't even look to the competition first. And second, that I'm going to be an ambassador, a free ambassador for you. And I'm going to be bringing you new business just by providing this excellent experience. The second perspective is about engineering efficiency. If we build features that users dislike or don't use, the time implementing them is wasted. And we cannot use that time or resource to provide any more value. So if we have finite time and finite resources, if we use a portion of that to create something that is not gonna provide value, somebody else is gonna use that to provide value, and we're gonna lose that race, that market share. Even after launch, it's not just in development, even after launch, the time wasted in the maintenance of those useless features or things that people do not use, do not find value in, takes resources and actually can hinder even refactoring activities or thinking about legacy support and providing bugs and fixes that fixes to things or features that nobody uses because it doesn't fulfill any real user problem. And in this perspective, UX designers collaborate with engineers throughout the entire software development lifecycle to create workarounds to unforeseen technical limitations that weren't able to be discovered during the normal design sprints or the normal ideation of the product, that just because of the technical knowledge of the software engineers can be now discovered and can be designed around those to minimize the chances that we will write code that never goes to production, code that after we test it, nobody uses it. After we launch, we have to pull it back. We have to do, well, like I said, refactoring or changing the product out when it's already launched. And having intimate product knowledge upfront, this is in the case of software engineers, helps to narrow down the intended use of the system and anticipate realistic error conditions. This allows us to create better unit tests, better QA tests, better scenarios to run to test the product, how it's going to behave in the production stage, how it's going to behave when the product it's outside, and how we can attack or minimize the errors that can be found in real scenarios. Edge cases will always exist, but because of this intimate product knowledge up front, we're gonna be better equipped to more accurately understand this use cases and create a software architecture that can support this edge cases and this specific situations that is going to be running down after we produce the product and it's out there. Also, there has been several studies about this, and some of the results are that 48% of the code is of the code in the software is dedicated to user interfaces. That is 48% of the code. It's smart to take time to understand why we're building this, if we're building it the right way, if this is something that is actually going to be usable, because it's 48% of the work. It's just 48% of the time that we want to be spending on this. User involvement reduces development time by 33 to 50% by improving decision-making and prioritizing dev tasks. This is why, because with the users, we can validate the ideas. We can know upfront what works and what doesn't. So whatever doesn't work, whatever was our idea, and we found out that it's not working, or the way that we are trying to implement it is not going to work, that is work that is never coded. That is work that is never dedicated more time or resources, and we can prioritize which are the best ways, or which ones are the most used features by the users that needs to be rolled out first in order to gain that traction, in order to get that initial adoption of the users that is going to be guiding the rest of the product. 50% of the time the program is spent on rework is actually avoidable. And why is this? Because we're prioritizing the features that are going to be the most important ones, and we are validating with the user how is the way that they think it's the best way for them to solve their problem. That is the reason why 50% of the rework it's avoided, because in design it's easier to move pixels than to rewrite code. And 33%, I'm sorry, reduction in development was experienced in IBM after adopting a UX process to create better designs. This is an experiment that IBM ran. They tried to match the ratio of designers and engineers to the golden ratio, 1 for every 8. And they hired more than 1,000 designers and run for a couple of years this UX process to make their software better, and they measured a 33% of reduction in development. And the third perspective is business value. UX designers need to learn about the business also, and the business goals to find the best way to meet them while maximizing the user's quality of experience. Like I said, we have this like a Venn diagram. We have these two actors in this experience. Is the business that needs to make money, needs to create something that works, something that is scalable, something that is cost effective. And we have, on the other hand, the users who will eventually be customers that are going to be using the products, are going to be making that product a success. And we have to meet both expectations. We have to find a way to understand both perspectives and craft the best solution to solve all the problems. Good UX helps craft a product that works much better than the competition, saving money in the process and driving higher conversions. And at the end, a product that is way cheaper to maintain because it's just what the customer needs. Nothing less, nothing more. Just what is required to create that feeling of success and accomplishment in the user and in the business. All of this translates to a more efficient use of resources and a better user adoption. From the business side, this value is seen mostly on two sides, on user adoption and cost reduction. In the case of user adoption, if we provide a product that is way more intuitive than the competition, and it's user friendly and it's easy to navigate and provides a flawless checkout flow or conversion flow, if it's a premium kind of product, we are supporting the whole customer satisfaction conversion retention framework. And that creates sales and creates revenue. And in the cost reduction perspective, good UX is based on research, analysis, and testing. This process is the one that prevents possible usability issues or problems from the start, when it's way cheaper to resolve. With accurate estimates for engineering, it's easier to estimate something that you can see working. It's way easier to estimate something that you can actually use. You can see the edge cases. You can actually see the screens, the animations, the transitions, and everything as the product as if the product was already built, and you can estimate the time of work that will require to convert that into code and a real product. And it's much cheaper to fix, like I said, a mistake in the design phase than in the production phase when the product is launched. And with that is this graph. There are some findings of studies made to support this perspective. It's more than 10x. It's more costly to fix something after the product is launched. It's 10 times more costly than in the design phase. In development, engineering is 6 times the price of fixing it during the design phase. 62% of large software projects exceed the initial time estimates. This is because if we are not sure what is the product that we need to build and how it will behave, it's probably that we misestimate how much time and money will take to build that. For every $1 invested in usability, has a 10 to 1x dollars as a return, and this is because of this. Everything that you invest here, you save here. 50% reduction in maintenance costs. This is in the same IBM experiment that they ran. They experienced 50% of reduction in maintenance after the product launch after adopting the UX process. 33% of reduction in development time, also after adopting the UX process. And in a experiment that Mozilla ran, they did a 14 weeks on usability focus. They saw a 70% decrease in support calls. This means that the product was made way more intuitive, way more usable, so people knew how to use it, and they didn't have to call the support line to ask for help. 70% decrease in support calls. Now we're going to be talking about a little overview of our UX process. We follow our custom-made, let's say, UX process that is based on IBM's enterprise design thinking, Google Design Sprints, Scrum, and Spotify Squads. With all those frameworks, we created our own that fits the industry that we're in, and it has the same familiar structure of the 5 steps of design thinking: understand, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Right, but in each phase, each phase creates a set of deliverables that are needed to the following the following step, the following one. And in some cases, it also informs or create information, or we discover information that can be used to inform to inform steps that are previous steps on future sprints. here, I'm gonna go through the process kind of to introduce how we do this in real life. In understand what we do, it's that we understand our users, we understand their goals, we understand who they are, what they want to do, how they want to do it, why is this a problem, and we create this empathy that is then used in the define phase, where we define the problems and that we are going to be challenging. We clearly define why is this a problem, what are the expected outcomes, what it's supposed to, what is this supposed to be doing, and then we move to the ideate phase, where we create this. Well, we do this brainstorm. We come up with a lot of ideas on how to solve that problem that was previously defined, and then we vote. We vote for which one we think it's going to be the best ones. And then those that are the winners are the ones that are moved to the prototype phase, where we actually create these prototypes to be used by the users in the next phase, that is testing. In the prototype phase, we can discover other opportunities that we didn't think of in the ideation phase, and those insights are recorded and used to enhance the activity of ideation in the next sprints. After the prototype is built, we go to the test phase, where we recruit real users. We test the solutions, or the solution is if it is just one, and we discover the usability of this. We discover the usability problems. We discover if this is the right way to solve this problem, if the user understood this, if we were totally wrong and we didn't understand what the problem was, or the context of the user in this particular problem, and that informs, like we see here, that informs the define. We can go back and redefine the problem if we discover something that we didn't catch before, or we can inform the understand phase or the empathy phase, and the user personas and the input and the affinity diagrams with new information and behaviors that we discover and we saw in this testing phase. Or we can discover other problems we discover design problems that our solution has. Let's say that we define the problem accurately, but the way of the solution is not the one that the user considers best. And all of those insights then are informed here, and a new prototype is built, taking into consideration those feedbacks and insights, and then the cycle goes again. And we do this for every design sprint that we run. Inside the sprints, the squad uses a set of tools of each of the main UX disciplines to guarantee the correct use or the correct implementation of the processes, and that we are paying attention to what is important in every phase. This are the four phases the four main disciplines that are inside the UX umbrella: user research, interaction design, visual design, usability testing. And we're going to go into some detail about each one of them, guided by their managers that are here. Maria, you're up.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us. Really exciting to be here. So I'm going to talk about the UX research process at a more granular level. Can we go to the next slide? Great, thank you. So at a very high level, this is what our process looks like. Essentially, we study the user and its context, and we try to point out what are their wants, their needs, their likes, And, you know, people say one thing and then they do another thing. We are that middleman contextualizing both of those things. So the first thing that we do is we set the objectives and what is the impending question that we're trying to answer. So to get more context for you, let's say that we're trying to validate or test a design that we have made. Before it reaches your hands in engineering, we go ahead and say, okay, we want to test how user-friendly this is, or we have a particular set of tasks that we want the user to complete. And so usually the stakeholder, which would be the project manager, product owner, will have some sort of question that they're trying to answer. Once we define that, we move on to defining the methodology. So based on that objective and question that we have, we decide how we're going to discover that answer. And based on those decisions, we create our artifacts. And our artifacts are just essentially the tools that we use. So that can look like a script, that can look like the tasks for usability testing, that can look like a survey, for example. It really depends. So we need to take into account the context of the business as well. And I'll talk a little bit about the obstacles in a couple minutes. But we take into account the whole scenario of the project, the time frame that we have, and then we create those artifacts and move on to execute the research. Depending on what we're doing and the type of project that we have, it can take a full sprint, it could take 2 sprints, it really depends. Ideally, in research, we are engaged well before we start the design process, because what we want to do is inform throughout the sprints the user perspective to the designers, and then touch base with users throughout the sprint just to fine tune some of the details. But ideally, we would do some research ahead of time, and that includes competitive analysis. We need to see what's out there, what looks like this, what are we going to look like. I think of UX as a way of taking business and then turning it into an actual thing. So we need to understand the context in which this product or service is going to exist. And the thing I like the most about this is that it doesn't have to be a tangible or digital product. This easily applies to a service. It easily applies to a process. And we tend to think consumer end, like an individual, but think of also building platforms for employees for the back end of any given organization, for example. So once we take the time and execute the research, we do the whole recruitment process. We do a persona, which is essentially that ideal user. So we give this person a name, age, likes, and wants. And so it helps us make better design decisions. So whenever we have a question in the middle of the sprint, it's like we can refer back to this person that we created based on the research that we conducted. And so this person, this fake person, right, it's going to help us answer those questions without having always to reach out to the end user. Because we do have to take into account that we're reaching out to people that have jobs and families and responsibilities. So their time is really, really precious to us. So we try to make the most out of those 30 to 40 minutes that we get with users. And we rely a lot on heavily planning how we're going to reach out to those individuals. And so we take a long time to put together that profile and then recruit them through email or phone calls or whichever way we have identified that works for the project and business. After we do that, we collect that data, we analyze it, we gather insight, actionable recommendations, and we deliver those results. Typically, we'll be to the same people that asked the question at the beginning, so the stakeholders, but we also make sure that we include everybody working on the project, because everybody can glean insight from what we uncover. And so it informs not only this particular sprint, but it informs potentially every other sprint that we're going to be working through. And so those insights, we fit them back into the design. I do want to point out that this process, it never ends. It repeats itself regardless of the sprints. It repeats itself over and over again. And you can take the most out of the research at any given point. But again, ideally, we would be engaged early on in the process. And we go to the next slide. Thank you. So what we do, I've listed here 3 main, let's say, aspects of the work that we do. And so we have exploration and discovery, which is when we don't know, there's no idea yet, there's nothing concrete. So we're going to start from scratch and start ideating what things could look like, what users could potentially want, and start defining that. We can do usability testing once we have something built already. And so we create those tasks. and we get the user to see if they complete those tasks, and then we can measure what needs tweaking. And then we have designer concept validation when we have an idea, and before we build or design anything, let's go ahead and test that concept. Let's see how that concept resonates with the users. And so from that point, we can start making changes or going forward if we validated that particular concept. In terms of the design, we can decide if we're testing low fidelity or high fidelity. It really depends where we are in the roadmap of the design. So depending on the need and the method, we will put different artifacts together, as I mentioned before. So if it's an interview, typically for exploration and discovery or concept validation, we will do an in-depth interview. So a bunch of questions to the user to get the qualitative data. But if we're doing, and we take into account quantitative data as well. So user reports, activity reports, all the tracking items within a page, how long a session lasted, how many clicks the person took to complete certain tasks, all of that we take into account. And then again, we define the users, we create that persona, and that feeds into the entire process of how we decide to execute the research. And we move to the next slide, please. And so I mentioned at the beginning of some of the obstacles that we have. And I think this is important to mention because there is, if you know about research or you've been on LinkedIn and you've seen the hashtag for research, there's this idea that we are not either appreciated enough or that, you know, the business is moving too fast or the business just wants to see something built. And so they skip UX and UX research and jump straight into engineering. That's not always the case. However, these are the obstacles that we have come across that are rather common. So for example, we have the user constraints. Some companies have so weird and secretive products, let's say, that we just cannot go out there and start testing. Maybe the relationship with the customer is so sacred that they don't want to be touching base with the customer and potentially compromising that relationship. So that, think of banking, for example. A lot of sensitive information could be shared. And in the world of insurance, where you take years to build a relationship with a customer, the business just does not want to compromise it. So we have to work around it. Either we get a proxy user or we just focus on doing secondary research, seeing what other tools similar to that are doing. And so we use that as our main source of information to fit into the design process. There's a matter of budget. We do have to remunerate the users, again, because of their time. And it's just a common practice in the world of research. And sometimes businesses will not have that amount of money to put into the research process. And company culture. Not everybody is user-centric, and that's just something that needs more time to grow. But yeah, the speedy results. Even though we work with an agile method, we still take into account the time and the emphasis that research needs. So if we're trying to do things rather quickly, maybe we have some confirmation bias going on, and we could compromise the quality of the information that we gather. We don't gather data for the sake of it. Just having information doesn't do anything with it, which is why we establish those objectives and we make sure that we're answering the question that we need to answer. So trying to do things rather quickly will compromise the quality of the information that we get. And then different priorities. In the end, we're all human beings working all together. Everybody has different priorities. Everybody's project is most important. Everybody's part of the process is the most important. So that human aspect of the process needs to be taken into account, which is why, and I'll say this again, the earlier we do research, the better. It saves money in the long run because you don't design and build and then have to rework the entire process. That's all I have for you in terms of research. If you have any questions, just please feel free to put them in the chat. Thank you.
Now we're going to be exploring the interaction design phase. Xavier, you're up.
Yeah, hello. I'm just gonna be talking about this middle part of the process, which is called interaction design, or shortly known as IXD. And a brief introduction for it, I will be reading out the interaction design foundations and description for it, which is the design that is of the interaction between users and products, which sounds kind of redundant, but it's basically what it is. Like the name of it's pretty self-explanatory. The goal of a direction designer is to create products that enable the user to achieve their objective in the best way possible. But this encapsulates a little bit of the both, not just interaction, but also visual design. So in GBH, we refer as interaction design as the process in which we conceptualize a product behavior and functionality. If you compare this to, let's say, making a building or something like that, if the user research, the first part of the what they do is making the base of the of this building to say, like gathering information on what type of ground it is, where why we are building there, and what the things that we need to actually build. The interaction will be the ones that actually build the structure, like put the beams, the cement floor, but just that part, like the one that has to be um making sure that doesn't fall apart once we had the final thing. Um, this normally in our line of work or how we do it in GBH can be achieved by three basic steps, which is creating flow maps for business process or using current or desired behavior. Depending on what step of the process the a project comes in, you might be creating something from scratch or creating or rebuilding something that's already done or redesigning a page that just needs a few adjustments depending on what the client actually came for. Or basically this defining the possible structure of the platform. The second part will be like the what it's more commonly known for the designer to do, which is doing the sketches, mock-ups, wireframes, or low fidelity prototypes. Which I'll go explaining the little difference of each one of those in a little bit. And the other part that also not normally seen for, well, if you are like a user or someone outside of the area that normally you never see is that defining those non-visible or non-testable platform behaviors. Um, because even if you are like making the best thing you can, there's a limitation to the design that can only be seen when you already develop the product. And I'll go to that in a second. Can you skip? So as I was saying, like the first part that we do normally is after the part of the research is done, we try to understand what are we actually building for or redesigning for. We normally do this by doing interviews with the clients, the users, and defining what do they want. It's either they want to make a platform for their current business that they don't have a either platform for, or they know their user have a problem but they don't know how to solve it, or they actually have their own platform already, but they want to change something that is not working or can work better. So we need to define this and understand how it works. The best way that we have done so far. There might be others, and there sure are others, but it's to define it in a kind of flow, visual flow that you can actually understand how it goes. See what the thinking, what the processes are inside of the platform or the business, so you know exactly where improvement can be applied or where things are missing that you can help your user and client with. Um, can you just skip it there, please? Normally, we do this for the whole platform. So not only the designers understand what they're doing, but also we can gather feedback through the client and also the developers. Things depending on the project. Like I said, there might be a project that's already the platform's already there, and they have already developers working on it for years, and they also have like important insight on how things work and how they were built, which can actually direct us on maybe taking that in consideration for future design, or understand why things are like that and maybe they can't be changed, or they can be just like work around keeping the same structure, but maybe a different approach will understand help us there. You can see here it's like a small feature of one of the platforms we have worked over the years, but this is just like one out of maybe 10 or something like that. So it gets a little bit complicated, even if you don't go too details in the shapes, because if I don't know if you guys have worked with this before, but the ones of you that have, um, you can go through lots of forms and shapes defining what you can do on the platform. But for us, because it's mainly what users do and what they think, we go pretty straightforward on to actions and decisions more than If there's like data or waiting time or stuff like that, they can appear, but it's not the most common. There's another way that we also work with, which is not a normal way of making flows, but it's something that has helped us to define structures, which is screen flow map, which is basically just defining the types of screens that we're having and the actions we can do on those. This help us a lot to estimate what we do and understanding how big can a platform be. Because if you define actions, you might be able to do 5 actions in one screen or one action if in multiple screens. But with this screen flow, you know how big it actually is, like how many things you needs to be done, and it's a lot easier to estimate what you're gonna be doing. That way, in the future, you can actually be close to what how much time it will take you to develop or design all of this. Next. So the second part, we normally start again depending on the client and the project. We normally start with sketching. This we do to get ideas out there. It's normally done by the designers, but in some cases, if the client has a specific idea that they want to show, they want to try to if we can implement it. We join with them in the ideation sessions and we normally go through different steps of going from simple features to more detailed stuff. Um, sometimes people are scared of sketches because they think they cannot draw. I can say myself, I'm a pretty bad drawer, and I do my sketch nonetheless. And I've seen a lot of people from business, from medicine, other type of career path that they do their sketches, and it doesn't matter the quality, the idea, what it represents is actually what helps. So getting that out there, even if it's just stick figures, is a way to be done. This is examples for sketches. You can either be like doing by hand, or some people prefer to do it digitally because maybe they have an iPad or they are more comfortable using a mouse or a pen for a digital pen. There's many ways to do it. As long as you can show what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do, and everybody understands it, even if it's with a speech assist, like actually describing what you want to do, it's always useful. Doesn't matter how you do it. After that, we normally, if we have ideas defined, we go to wireframes. As the name says, it's basically just a structure. Doesn't have any colors. Doesn't have any final information like maybe text or a specific icon. In some of the you might see it, but it's some people go a little bit over the board making it just to make it a little bit more detailed because they already have the idea and they want to try it out. Others go, as you can see in the right, there's just like basic allocation of the where the sections are gonna be, how's the header gonna be shaped, how's the information gonna be shown. Even if it's not final, it's to get a rough idea of how it's gonna work. For wireframes, it can be as detailed and as low detail as you want. It all depends on the time you have on yourself. If you have a lot of time, you can go a little bit more detailed like this one's on the left. I some people add color to make it a little bit more clear what's more important, what's less important, or to highlight, like you see the location being on the middle, which is plain color. Also the like button with the heart and red. This can go, like I said, like this might look finished to some people, but it's not. It's mostly to show where every action and where every information that we want to be part of the main functionality of the structure. And this has to do with the usability, the scalability of the components. How can we actually arrange it for make it more visible to the user? And other sides, you can see the ones that, sorry, go back. You can see the ones on the right that are a little bit more clear, but they have a little bit more information, like the tests and stuff like that. If that's something that you want to test during the part of the design, that's something you work on. Again, depending on what are the things that you want to do. Now you can. So the third part for the what we do is user stories and subject criteria. We used to work with user stories, but we have moved to a little bit more simple tool, which defining the acceptance criteria. This information is basically to show things that cannot be shown in the prototype of the design. Example, like in a design, you cannot say how many characters you can. There are ways to do it, but you normally don't say how many characters or what type of characters an input field can accept, or maybe the duration of a specific animation, or if you have like a table that does something, you're not gonna repeat it in like all. If you have like 30 tables on your platform and it's the same behavior, you're just gonna do it once. You're not gonna do it like 30 times. And that's something that you describe here. It helps a lot to the developers to understand those things that cannot be shown, because with a mix of the design and the visual design that you're gonna be seeing next, and this type of information, it's most of the things that developers need to actually get them building the platform. We have worked on iterating this many times, and this is what we have the moment. It has to work for us pretty well. But yeah, that's basically the process we manage as an interaction design. That's it for my side.
Hi
Thank
guys.
you. Yeah, you're up.
In my case, I want to explain basically what is visual design, and it's basically the most obvious or visual part of the entire UX process, because it's something you can see as a final. Actually, when you, as a developer, you receive a design from us, it's basically with the visual design applied. But basically, the visual design helps to elevate the user experience, or basically to understand better on any kind of digital product, like on a website, apps, etc. It's basically define the look and feel of the product and ensures an intuitive interface for the users. Also, as a visual designer, we create the graphical interface layouts using design principles. Is basically, if you are a visual designer, you have to manage that kind of fields like design principles using color hierarchy, consistency, typography, iconography, etc. Also, another key part in that design is design parents, basically to help users to achieve their goals easier. In part of this process too, considers the accessibility and basically the feedback user to help to create a better product in general. It's basically, they have to look attractive and obviously as a UX part, easy to use. Why this is important? Basically, the visual design helps to streamline the user experience. Basically, we take all the resources we created in the previous processes, like interaction design, user research. That information help us to make it easier for users to find the best way to basically complete the task using a product. You can ask how we can do it, that, or how we can create that experience. Basically, it's a combination of creativity, design principles, and design parents. Also, we can start creating on a brainstorming. After that, we create an style guide to help to understand how that product will look in the future. Obviously, we consider the product brand to maintain the essence of that product. Another part I mentioned a lot of times before is basically the design parents. And what is a design parent? It's basically the most reusable solution to common design problems. And it's basically the best way to understand that part is we can avoid to reinvent the wheel, and we can focus to create unique experiences about that product we are working on. You can probably learn or hear about some popular design patterns like pagination, breadcrumbs, pull to refresh, buttons, and a lot of design patterns. It's in that industry, we have a lot of design patterns, and you probably saw very common in some popular apps like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. In that example we have here, you can notice they are pretty similar in general. For example, you can continue, Pablo. This part here is the button navigation, and it basically looks the same. That is a pretty common design pattern, and basically any application in the market right now have it because it's easy to use, it's reachable, and we have some more common patterns in that screen, but it's one of them. For example, in that part, you can create hybrid applications like one for iOS and one for Android. That's an example of Facebook. In that case, the main components looks pretty similar, but they change the experience, accommodate the users in each platform. In iOS, it's more common to have button navigations, and in Android, they use tabs on the top of the screen. It's very common, but it depends on the necessities and basically the kind of user you have. Another example, but some different, is Snapchat. That application some years ago break the way we saw parents because they implement some crazy new ways to interact with the screens. Basically, they implement, like we know now, like a stories, like pull or press to record, and easy ways to create videos, and a lot of things, new things in that moment. And right now, the most popular apps basically have it because you can create a new design pattern from the scratch, but it's very difficult because sometimes you need more time to understand and get the idea and how to use it. That's another part about design and visual design. And one pattern is better if easy to use. That's basically key in that kind of experiences. In the Snapchat case, they basically basically they want to break the market in that way, designing something weird or unusual, and that's basically works for them. And they now, it's not necessarily the most popular in the market, but Instagram, Facebook, etc., they copied those features because it's basically people like it a lot. For example, here we have a wireframe. That wireframe comes from the interaction design. And when we receive it, we already created an style guide to basically convert that or design to the final product. For example, now the final mockup looks like this in comparison with the previous one. We take that information, that structure, and we basically design it in a pleasant way. Another example is this one, is an application. And here you can see some basic elements to basically create the structure and the importance of any information. But on the visual design, you can see the final look and feel and that experience that basically users receive. At the end of the day, visual designers are so close to developers because we create those screens, those components that you need when you are building the apps. And we use some tools to help you to basically inspect those components on the colors, typographies. Because if you don't have any experience designing as a designer, it's very difficult to get those elements. This industry is growing up so fast, and for example, these tools are right now are very common, and you can use it to communicate better with designers. Another part and about that, and you can basically use it if you want to start to creating some components from not necessarily from the scratch. It's basically you can get on a base to use is using popular frameworks like Bootstrap and Design and React Native. Those libraries have basically a lot of components already code, and also they have the design if you want to include it in your projects. And basically at the end, visual design is the most visual part of the entire UX process. It's the user's first impression and is key to give value to your users. That's the last part when users interact with your products. As developers, it's good to maintain a good communication with designers, because sometimes we start to discussing and have problems instead of to negotiate some decisions we already designed. But that's basically visual design. You can continue. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the final part of the presentation, the takeaways. First, UX is, as we learned today, UX is not just about design. It's about creating a vision. It's about creating a plan that will fulfill both users and produce business goals, tangible business goals. UX impacts your users' satisfaction, which has a direct impact on your product success. If your product is not used, the product is going to be a failure. It doesn't matter how well built it is. UX designers focus on users and their needs to fulfill them in the right way, as those users are the potential customers of the product or solution. A UX strategy based on UX research helps to consider the user's needs and business vision and the technical capabilities before setting up the requirements. Understanding well what it is that needs to be built, it's key in this it's key in this process, and is like the crown jewel of this whole industry. A good interaction design helps avoid information overload, because it's something that is designed and tested, set clear paths, and allows the development team to analyze the features in a very early stage to provide valuable insights. We as designers probably don't know all the technical constraints that we have in the tech stack that was chosen, and when developers see the wireframes, they understand that it's something that is implementable, or it's something that simply because of the framework that was chosen is not something that it's going to fly. So we have to redesign it in that early stage, before the visual, before all the structure that you guys saw. This is redesigned and the resources are well spent. Usability testing is what allows us to identify a good idea and a bad idea, and spot any problems before investing into development resources. This is the tool that we use to test with the users to validate that whatever we're building is something that is going to be useful and is going to be valuable for them at the end. And the most important one is that we have to trust the process of UX UI design, as it minimizes risk. It makes the right assessment of your product or website, and it can help you reduce costs in the long term. And thank you so much for the opportunity. This is the space for questions.
Okay, thank you very much to all. It was extremely interesting. I learned a lot of things here. But I would like to hear some questions. So now it is open for questions. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
It's a question for them. Do you feel like every company with a user-facing products should have their own UX team, or it makes sense to hire some other company like yours? Say it's like a startup or a smaller company. How do you feel
Well,
about it?
Well, it depends on the maturity of the product. We are an agency, and we have basically two set of clients. We have startups that wants to build a POC or proof of concept product or an MVP, and they don't have the time nor resource to hire an in-house team. So they hire us to create that first version of the product. And then we just, when they are ready, when they have their team of engineers, their team of designers, we hand off all the production to them, and we just serve as consultants into the future. And the other kind is big companies like IBM or any big company that has a very mature set of products and users, but they have grown so big that innovation for them is too slow. So they hire us to test, let's say, an idea or a product idea that their teams are too busy to work